Okay, I just got the clue from the back that is the mic good? Yes? Okay, terrific. Okay, good. Welcome, everyone. I introduced myself before for those of you that were here earlier. My name is Lynn Erickson. I'm the Executive Director and CEO of the Da Vinci Science Center. And I'm thrilled to be here at this event tonight and to meet many of you. Thank you so much for coming. This is our first in-person forum since 2019, and I have to say I'm also thrilled to be doing this in person. And for those of you watching virtually, thank you for tuning in. One silver lining of the last few years is we have learned how to do things remotely and connect in ways that we had not before. As many of you know, the WISE initiative is dedicated to encouraging girls to pursue STEAM careers and creating a supportive community of female STEAM professionals. For those of you who aren't familiar, STEAM is the integration of science, technology, engineering, art, and mathematics. I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge, and I was talking with her earlier, so I'm not sure where she is right now, but one such young woman who is here with us this evening. Nicole Luna is a senior at Deereth High School in Allentown. She's a Da Vinci Science Center STEAM Scholarship Award winner who has many interests, including architectural engineering and studio art. She's been volunteering at the Science Center to share her passion about STEAM with our young visitors. Nicole also spoke on behalf of the Science Center at a recent Allentown City Council meeting, where we were granted $1 million towards the development of our new Science Center in downtown Allentown. Nicole played a big role in getting that $1 million, and she is a wonderful example of how an outstanding young student in STEAM is giving back to support others in her community. The WISE initiative is part of the Science Center's broader commitment supporting women and girls like Nicole who are interested in STEAM. Tonight's networking session is the perfect example of our desire to connect girls who aspire to STEAM careers with practicing female professionals. I don't have to tell anyone in this room how important it is to close the gender gap in STEAM careers. While we've seen some improvements, especially in healthcare-related fields, we still need to do better. Women, and especially women of color, are underrepresented in many STEAM professions, including architecture, engineering, and computer science. Women make up only about 28% of the STEAM workforce, yet these fields offer some of the fastest growing and highest paying jobs of the future. We aim to change that. The WISE initiative has 3 primary goals: to directly mentor young girls who are interested in STEAM, to connect professional women employed in STEAM fields, creating a community of STEAM professionals who support one another through networking, social events, and mentoring, and to bring passion, insight, expertise, and resources to advise the Da Vinci Science Center on strategies for developing girls' interest and achievement in STEAM. In addition to our annual WISE Forum and Dinner, the WISE Initiative hosts Women in STEAM Career Connection Field Trip Days, a STEAM after-school girls club, Girl Scout Day and Camp-In programs, and evening networking events for practicing STEAM professionals. In fact, we're hosting one of our Women in STEAM Career Connection Field Trip Days this week at the Science Center. Through researching barriers, addressing how we design and market programs, and providing opportunities such as this event to inspire girls and women in STEAM, we have seen an increase in girl participation and growth of our network in women in science and technology. The WISE initiative is led by the WISE Executive Advisory Council, some of whom you'll hear from later, and many of whom are here this evening. These women are busy reimagining the future of the WISE initiative. They are our guiding stars behind the WISE programming and evenings like this one. Thank you, ladies, for all your dedicated time and expertise. Tonight's event and the entire WISE initiative wouldn't have been possible without our sponsors, and I'd like to take a few minutes to recognize them at this time. Our legacy sponsor is Sanofi, a generous supporter of this event since its inception. 2014 was the first WISE forum dinner like tonight. Sanofi sponsored this event and every WISE forum since. This support has made it possible for the Da Vinci Science Center to help move the needle for high school girl participation in STEAM programs and pursuit of STEAM careers. Our champion sponsor is Mack Trucks, another longtime supporter of the WISE program and the Science Center. Through classroom programs, science clubs, and the Mack Truck Cab and Game Simulator at the Science Center, Mack partners with us to help educate young people about career opportunities in truck manufacturing. Heartfelt thanks to both our legacy and champion sponsors. I'd also like to thank our patron sponsors. Again, I'm proud to say all long-term supporters of the Da Vinci Science Center. ATAS International, PPL Corporation, Reach Cyber Charter School, Victaulic, and RKL. And our supporting sponsors, Martin Guitar, MKSD, and Mariner Wealth Advisors. Thank you to all our friend and networking sponsors, which are listed in the program book. Last, but certainly not least, I want to leave you a few words from our WISE initiative sponsor, Evonik Corporation. This year, Evonik made a leadership gift to support the WISE initiative. Their generous donation will provide resources to expand the WISE initiative to reach more girls and women. I would like to share this short video that highlights why Evonik is dedicated to gender equality in the workplace and recognizes the importance of a supportive community.
Evonik is committed, and what better way to give back to the community here than to support the local science center with Da Vinci, and in particular the WISE initiative, Women in Science and Engineering, which is focused at girls and trying to get them more excited and into science.
Little known fact that only 28% of STEAM workforce is made up by women. The scientific community needs to leverage this diversity in order for us to find the solutions that we need.
STEM careers drive the future, and it's important for girls and women to have a seat at the table when developing solutions for our society to become more sustainable and create a better future.
Individuals with varying experiences and perspectives produce the most innovative and efficient results. This is why it's important for us to support girls in the WISE program. I'm responsible making sure that all of the creative and innovative personnel at Evonik's Business and Innovation Center here in Allentown have an environment that's conducive for them to develop the technologies and products to change the world.
We make products that go into materials like wind blades to make them stronger, into coatings to make them brighter, and into lithium-ion batteries to make your car go farther.
I get to do things like build a manufacturing facility that creates materials that go into mattress foam to make your bed more comfortable, or insulation to make your home warmer.
Supporting girls in STEM is really important to me personally because as long as I can remember, I always wanted to be a scientist. Even as a little girl, I was making potions in the backyard and wearing the safety glasses and the white coat, and I loved going to the local science center where I grew up. But even back then, I realized that there was less girls than there were boys in the room whenever we were doing science experiments. And although that's changed over the years some, we still have a gap.
As a young man, I was fortunate enough to have a lot of strong women around me who supported me, women who also were in STEM careers and understood what it would take to be successful in the STEM workplace, as well as the commitment it takes to gain the knowledge necessary to be successful.
The mentors I had early in my life were crucial, and I would like to play the same role here in the community of Allentown. That's why I'm excited to work with the WISE Advisory Council.
Being able to work with all the outstanding professionals from the region, the women professionals from the different companies that come together with one common cause, as well as with all the fantastic people at the Da Vinci Center, it's really an honor to contribute back and give back to the center and give back to the community that my kids have grown up with is really something special to me.
There are more opportunities for women now than ever.
Very, very excited to see where Da Vinci Center and Evonik can grow in the Lehigh Valley.
Be persistent, be curious, and not be afraid to take risks. Don't be afraid of roadblocks, but learn how to climb over them or go around them.
Be honest about your passions and be vocal about them. Let everyone know. If you're interested in chemistry, tell them so. The more that you hear yourself say that, you're going to build your own confidence.
Science can be hard, it can be difficult, but don't forget to have fun. Don't forget to connect to those around you, to be curious, and to change the world.
Thank you so much to Evonik. And the message there was to pursue your dreams. And I am so inspired by all the young women that are here this evening and the ambitious goals that they have and the dreams that they have. It's terrific. So remember, pursue your dreams. And you're going to hear some fabulous stories from our panelists tonight. So without further ado, I'd like to ask Carolyn Chaplin, Director of Offline Operations from Mack Trucks, to come forward and introduce the part of our program that we've been eagerly anticipating.
Thank you, Lynn, and good evening, everybody. I echo Lynn's comments. It is so inspiring to see so many young women here tonight in pursuit of your STEAM careers and networking. A few of us were just commenting before this speaking opportunity on how we wish we had had similar opportunities earlier on in our careers. And I'm sure I speak on behalf of many mentors here this evening that we welcome the opportunity to give back, as so many of us have had inspirational leaders and people that have opened doors earlier in our journey. As Lynn said, I am the Director of Offline Operations for Mack Trucks, and I am very proud to be Mack's first operations director in the company's history, and in fact, the first operations leader for Volvo in North America. And I'm proud to say that confident I will not be the last, and that's because our company is very committed to women in our industry. I'd like to acknowledge my female colleagues who are here with me this evening, strong powerhouses of their own in careers of quality, logistics, engineering, project management. The possibilities really are endless. And as a company, strengthening our diversity and inclusion is a very aggressive strategic initiative we have launched within the company. We still have a long ways to go. I think we're currently at about 30% of our workforce, and our management teams are female, but very committed to building on that. When I think back to my own career as well, even prior to joining Mack, I seem to have made a career of breaking down boundaries. So prior to coming to the United States, I'm actually in fact Canadian, and joining the Mack team, I had the privilege for 10 years working in offshore oil industry, flying to offshore platforms, helping with asset transformations, and was in fact one of Deloitte's global operations leaders. There was only 3 females globally around the world. So I bring that up not to talk about myself, but just to simply highlight for you, if I had any words of encouragement, is to dream big, because your possibilities of your careers are endless and limitless. It's all about your own imagination and what you want to do with that. But this evening I have the pleasure of introducing our moderator for tonight's discussion, Megan Frank. Megan is an Emmy-winning journalist. She covers technology, science, and the environment for PBS 39 and WLVR. Megan has worked on a variety of projects, including the award-winning weekly news program PBS 39 News Tonight, the digital literacy series Tech Takeover, the documentary Food Waste in the Valley, and Stop the Violence, an award-winning series about teen violence and gang recruitment. Recently, Megan wrote and hosted and produced the Emmy-winning short film, The Future is Female, Women, Space, and NASA, which focused on the role women play in America's space program. She has worked at WHYY in Philadelphia and for 2 Harrisburg area news stations, WGAL and WHTM. Her reporting has been recognized by the Pennsylvania Association of Broadcasters several times. A native Philadelphian, Megan kicked off her career as an intern and freelancer for the Philadelphia Inquirer, Philadelphia Daily News, and Philly.com. She's the recipient of the top honor from Temple University, the Legacy Award for Excellence in Reporting on Diverse Communities. When she's not reporting, you can find her at home whipping up plant-based meals or working in her garden. Last but certainly not least, she and her husband are the proud parents of super mutt named Rocky. Please give a warm welcome to what I'm sure will be a phenomenal panel discussion this evening, Megan.
Thank you, Carolyn. Thanks so much. I'm also expecting a little girl in December, and Carolyn, that was such a beautiful introduction. My pregnancy hormones are going to make me cry. That was so nice. And Carolyn, you're such a trailblazer in your field, and it was great to hear a little bit about your story and your career. So I hope that everyone had the time to read about our panel. I'm so excited to speak to these women about how they got where they are, and hopefully you'll get some ideas about how you could maybe get to maybe where they are or any other ideas you have. So today we have with us Carolyn Ruiz-Reyes. She's with Braun Medical Incorporated, and she has a great title. She's the Continuous Improvement Corporate Manager for the United States for Braun Medical. We also have with us Maggie Luther. She's an NPR broadcast and recording technician, and Marina Madrid. She is the co-founder of Celino. So welcome all of these lovely ladies to the panel. I wanted to start with a question about how you were able to get where you are today. I know sometimes people say there's a formula. Maybe you didn't follow a specific formula. So Carolyn, how did you find your roadmap, so to speak, to where you are?
Sure, so I just want to say good evening, everyone, and I want to thanks for the opportunity for being here tonight. I'm very grateful and honored for being here. Last time I was here, I was in the other side, so it is really a pleasure and an honor to be from this side. And I want to start saying I was amazed with all the brilliant girls that I talked tonight. We were having that discussion because you already know what you want to do, right? I didn't have any idea. I would say it was not a straight line for me, but I was a big dreamer. I knew where I want to be, but I didn't know how I would get there. So my dream was to live abroad and to travel the world and to change the world. And I didn't know how I was gonna do that. And one day I discovered engineering, and I discovered that engineering is behind everything that we do. This table, this bottle, our clothes, there are engineers behind the backstage moving all the pieces, designing, creating. So I knew I wanted to become an engineer. And I think a byproduct of becoming an engineer was to really be able to have door opens to me. So after becoming an engineer, I started working in my current company, which have a site in Dominican Republic, Vivran. We are a healthcare company. So I had the opportunity of studying an internship, and then I went to Europe to do my first master because I knew I wanted more. I was I was happy where I was, but my dream was still inside me. So I came back from Europe, and I have the opportunity 4 years ago to come to the States. And when I was here, I just realized I wasn't Caroline anymore. I was every young girl, low income from a country like mine, woman of color, Latina. That was myself. I was representing each one of us. And I became an advocate, and really I want to create an ecosystem that gets girls to being in STEAM, to be engineers, or just being whatever you want to be. So that's how I got here today.
And Maggie, what about you?
Well, again, thank you everyone for having me here for the WISE initiative. I think it's really great, and I feel very lucky and honored to be able to talk to all of you. My path also is very much not straight. I come in my job from a more creative standpoint. I went to undergrad for music, so I come from a very creative background, and I've kind of had to learn a lot of the more technical aspects of my job on the job from people around me, and I've been very fortunate to be around mentors and teachers and other professionals who have been very giving of their time and teaching me what I need to know to kind of make my own path for myself. And I still don't really know where I'm going to go with my career. Also, I liked the idea of studying abroad. I lived in Norway for 5 years, and it was a really amazing experience. And I think most of my life has been about having experiences and learning from other people, because I think that's the best way to grow, and we're a multicultural, diverse, incredible, population of people, and I think there's a lot to learn from people. So, I'm not even sure sometimes how I got to sit at this table. I'm not really sure how I'm here, so it's pretty great.
And Marina, what was your experience to get where you are today?
Oh yeah, thank you. So I wanted to echo what these two ladies said. I am so impressed with y'all because you're clearly very brilliant, very motivated. You're, light years ahead of where I was at your age. When I was in high school, I had no idea what I wanted to do. And so when I first graduated high school, I grew up in Southern California, but I went to NYU to study journalism. And I ended up being terrible at it. It was just like, I was so bad at writing. Writing is very important in journalism. Who knew? Not me at 17. So I ended up dropping out in the middle of my first year and moving back home and just starting over at community college. And I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to learn. So I started over at community college. I found out that I really loved my science classes, physics and math and biology, all of them. And my teachers there were so incredibly impactful. They actually encouraged me to apply to a 4-year to transfer. So I ended up going to UCLA to get my undergraduate degree in biophysics. And then again, I had fabulous mentors at UCLA. My mentors at UCLA encouraged me to apply to graduate school. I said okay, but I was only applying to graduate schools in California because I had lived in New York City. I had not liked it, and my mentor said, I will write you a letter of rec, but only if you apply to at least one school on the East Coast. So I said, okay, I'll apply to Harvard. I won't get in. I can stay in California and get my letter of rec. And I ended up getting into Harvard. So I went for my PhD. I did my PhD in applied physics. While I was there, I worked with a lab mate named Nabiha Siklayan, who I've been working with for a decade now. She's been a really important person in my life. And we co-invented a technique where we can use lasers to basically kill bad cells. So let's say you're transplanting a cell therapy into a patient, like a bone marrow transplant. You don't want any one of those cells to be potentially tumorous. That would be very bad. So we can use lasers to basically target and get rid of the bad cells. So we invented this together during our PhD, and we decided to commercialize the technology. So in 2017, while I was still in my PhD, we incorporated Celino, which is our startup company. I graduated as soon as I could after we started the company, and I've been working on it full-time ever since. So over the past 5 years, we've grown the company from, just a couple co-founders to we have 45 employees now. We've fundraised almost $100 million. We've had a lot of really cool opportunities as a result of it. We were recognized on the Forbes 30 Under 30 list a couple of years ago. A couple of weeks ago, I was invited to the White House to give the Biden administration advice on biomanufacturing efforts and what the current state of the field is. So I never expected to go into the startup space. My long-term career goal was always to be a community college teacher. But I took this path because these opportunities popped up, and I had mentors along the way who kind of pushed me to try them and to be open to them. And as a result, I've had a lot of opportunities to have moments of impact and moments where my voice was heard, which I really appreciated.
That's great, and I did want to remind the audience that at the end of the presentation here, if you do have specific questions about how any of these women were able to make strides in their careers or any questions along those lines, we will have microphones open. So Carolyn, you're a passionate advocate for diversity and inclusion initiatives. What are you most proud of in terms of your impact, especially at your job?
Sure. I would say that the first part, and I think that's something that we already know, or we should know by now, is that representation matters. And that's why I love this table. I think we are from a diverse background. So the first part is to really be able to be a role model for women, and intersectionality. That's a term that has been there in the late days, like a woman of colors, Afro-Latina, right? So I think being able to be here today is a big step. And we were talking about one brief example of why representation matters. If you read in the online about the crash test for vehicles right now, they are done with male dummies, right? They never use a female dummy. So women are 73% per study that I've read more likely to be injured in a car accident because we are not being represented on that. And even, for example, a Band-Aid. Years ago for me, being a black girl, to find a Band-Aid that blended with my skin was so hard. So we really need to be there. We need to be in the design. We need to be at the beginning of everything, representing all of us to be able to really change the direction of the world. And I would say that representation, also being able to open the doors. Right now, I would say I'm very fortunate to have mentors and colleagues and supervisors that have believed in me, and now I have in the boys, and I'm in a position that I can open the doors, right, for other young girls to be in a similar position, and to also encourage. We talk about engineering and too many girls tonight, and I had a beautiful experience in California, which is your home right now, a while ago, where I was talking to a girl. She was on vacation, and she just asked me, "What do you do for a living?" And I told her I'm an engineer, because my title is weird, so I don't tell my title to everyone. So I just told her I'm an engineer. She was so amazed. I was the first woman engineer she met. And she told me she wanted to be an engineer, but she didn't have the supporting system. Her family, her friends told her, like, that's weird, a woman engineer. So we just have a brief tech talk, I will call it, like 10, 15 minutes. We sat down and talked about it. And I think after we finished, she told me, like, wow, this was so amazing to really being able to hear your story, and now I'm encouraged to follow my dreams. So being able to represent, to use my voice, and also encourage other women, I think that's the thing that I'm more proud of.
Nice. So Maggie, did you know since you were young that you wanted to go into broadcasting? Because you talked earlier about music, I believe behind the scenes earlier you mentioned political science.
Yeah.
So how do you actually narrow it down? How do you pick? Have you picked, actually?
I don't actually know if I figured out what I really want to do yet. I think I know, because like I'm pretty happy at NPR, so it's fine. But I didn't really know what I wanted to do. Like you said, I was going to go to school for theater and political science. That was my thing. And now knowing how politics works, I'm kind of like, oh, it makes sense. I'd want to be an actor and also be a politician. Those kind of go together. But I didn't really know what I wanted to do with those things, and honestly, it was because I was good at those things at the time. Like, I was very good at history. I love history, and I still really love politics. But when I got to college, I was like, oh, I don't really like this, kind of like your experience with journalism. And it wasn't necessarily because I wasn't good at it. I just didn't have the passion for it. So I still took political science classes when I was in college because it was kind of fun for me. But I ended up pivoting towards music, because I was involved also in music in my high school and my undergrad, or not my undergrad, my middle school and my elementary school, and always was around me, and I was pretty good at it. But I quickly learned I wasn't good enough and I didn't have the passion to be a professional musician, and it's hard. It's really hard to have that lifestyle. And now
what did you play?
I played trombone.
Nice.
Also, no one really, trombone player isn't the most glamorous musician. So I'm not playing guitar or something. Anyway, I still play sometimes, but good thing I don't do it anymore. But yeah, so I realized, I was like, I still really like working in music, but I don't really know like what I want to do with it. And my senior year of undergrad, we had to take some recording classes and some science-related classes to kind of go with the whole degree, which was music industry. So it was a music business degree. And I realized I really loved the technical side of audio and music. And so I ended up going to grad school at NYU. I learned more about that there. And then from there, I kind of was like, well, I have this degree and I'm still learning and I still don't really know what I want to do with it. So I'm not even really sure if I'm answering this question at all. I guess I don't really know where I'm going with any of it.
It sounds like you're open to even more things down the road.
I think too, like, as I experienced more things in my life, I again was surrounded by people who were really knowledgeable about what they did. And I think as you go further along in your career, things open up, but things also get kind of more focused. So you start to be like, there's all these possibilities, but I'm also much more sure of what I don't want to do. And where I am now, it's a very interesting place because it's my first corporate job. I've never worked in a corporate environment before, so environmentally it's kind of a strange thing. I've worked in music studios, I've worked around a lot of analog and digital recording equipment, but I've never worked in that sort of environment. And so I'm learning a lot about like internet codecs and ISDN lines and kind of the more Ethernet IT system design stuff, which is so out of my wheelhouse in terms of where I come from. And I think that if you're open to possibilities and you're open to using the strengths you have and finding ways to have them move you forward, I think eventually you reach a place where you're pretty happy.
And that reminds me of what Marina and I talked about before the panel started. So you actually were working in the lab, and now you're doing things where you're promoting your company and having business meetings. Did you envision that happening?
No, I mean, I didn't really envision any of it. I had no idea what it was going to take going into building a company. But in the early days, there are 3 co-founders, and that's all you have. So you're doing everything. Like, I was in the lab doing the actual experiments. I was talking to vendors, trying to figure out how to buy supplies. I was taking out the trash. I had, like, 4 times a year, very scary moments where I would have to file important financial documents because we didn't have a proper accountant yet, and I'm not a proper accountant. But like in the early days of a startup, everyone wears a ton of hats. And then once you build out the company, we have 45 employees now, so now we can afford to hire specialists. So now we have hardcore stem cell biologists doing the experiments, and we have like a hardcore chief financial advisor taking care of the finances. So my role has changed a lot. So I'm no longer in the lab or doing, like running around doing 100 different things. Now my role is very much, it's called Chief Product Officer. And what product management is you're kind of the link between understanding the field and what the industry needs and what your company is doing internally. So my job is to basically go out, talk to cell therapy developers, talk to scientists, understand what challenges they're facing, and then go into my company and say, here are the problems, this is the technology that we should build and the products that we should build to solve it. So it still uses scientific expertise, but I think it leans more heavily on communication expertise and less heavily on hands-on lab work expertise.
That's great.
I'd like to talk a little more about something, Carolyn, you were talking about earlier. For those moments where maybe you're the only woman in the room or the only woman of color in the room, how do you navigate that? I don't know if you have to break the ice or do extra to talk to people. How do you navigate that?
That's a great question, and I know I was having the same conversation before. And it's not easy, right? I would not say it's easy, but it motivates me. Once you realize you're the unique person in the room, just give you an opportunity to demonstrate, right, what you are made for. So I think that the first thing is to really understand who we are, where have we come, where are we coming from, and really understand that we are in that place for a reason, right? So once we've realized I'm here because I'm worth it, because everything we have done so far, becoming an entrepreneur, CEO, being in public radio, is because we have had our hard work to be here. So once that really sat down on my mind, which maybe happens in seconds, it need to happen in seconds, right, when you're in a conference or something like that, then I say, this is a good opportunity to represent who I am. And I was having the conversation before, for example, that I was in a conference, I was the only woman in that line, and everybody was asking questions, and I was very shy to ask a question. But I said, I'm gonna ask a question because I'm the only woman here and they need to see that there is a woman on the front. So I just stood up, I asked a question, and it was amazing. I felt so good after it. And I think it's just a matter of really taking those opportunities, not seeing that as a bad thing. It's just take that opportunity and make it happen, just invert it for a good thing. And I don't know what you think about it, but we have had many moments where we need to represent who we are, and that's when you say, okay, this is my moment, let's do it.
I think I can agree with that too. You almost get like mad because you're like, I can't believe that I'm the only woman here.
Yeah.
And especially being a journalist for STEAM topics, which is something I carved out for myself. Just knowing that I'm the only woman raising my hand to do those assignments. I'm the only one pushing for that. Reading articles on different tech websites that are all written by men. And you feel that a little bit, that kind of like, I want to change this.
Exactly.
How about you guys?
So the one thing that I wanted to say is like, when I started off, I was often the only woman in the room, but I think you're experiencing this, you kind of alluded to it, Carolyn. Once you get high enough up in your career, you get to decide what the room looks like. Like our C-level suite, our company is majority women and majority people of color. And that's definitely not common for a biotech, but like once you're high enough up, you get to make hiring decisions and you get to play a role there. There is, I think in the beginning, you have to be a little, when you're not at that level, you have to be a little bit strategic about how you present yourself and make sure that you're making a good impression so that you can get to that level.
Yeah, that's great. Yep.
Okay, this is a tough one, you guys. How do you balance your career with other aspects of your life? Hobbies, special interests, family and friends?
Should I start with that one? That's the hard one.
You can start.
Let's pass it now. So balancing is always a question that is hard to answer, right? And I think it's tailored to everyone. We need to really prioritize what are our things. But I would just say one thing that have worked for me, and is having habits and routines. And I was reading a book about atomic habits, and believe me, they are very helpful, because when you have a routine and you know what you need to do, it's not that sometimes people tell me you are being too square, you're an engineer, you're just 1, 2, 3. It's helpful because when you don't know what you're gonna do in the day, anything can happen. So if you don't have your priorities clear, then instead of maybe spending time with your family or doing something healthy for yourself, maybe just scroll down Instagram for 4 hours, which I know is fine after work, right? So if that's your priority, but I would say in short terms, creating habits. I'm not in the 4 a.m. club. I'm not saying that. It depends on what you really like. But if you can really say, I want to do this in the morning, I want to wake up early in the morning to work out, and then I have my work time, and then I want to spend time with family, reading, etc. Really structuring that is really helpful.
Yeah, I would say the routine stuff is really important. I really like to run, and so for me, it's harder right now with, again, working in journalism and broadcast. You can understand, like, my schedules are 24 hours in a way, and so I don't necessarily have the same routine all the time, but outside of my working hours, I try to always prioritize physical activity for exercise, because I feel like it's something where it calms me and it's just for me, and I like getting that out of the way in the morning, because I feel like then if the rest of the day is not for me, at least I had that hour of time or whatever that's for myself, and I feel like that also helped me manage other parts of my life when I feel like anxiety or stress is unmanageable. It kind of evens me out a little. So I think like prioritizing a routine and also some sort of physical activity, running or biking or whatever, it helps it helps focus your mind on something, and then you can have kind of a more productive day.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm like you. I think physical activity is super, super important. Hobbies are really important in my life. So my main hobbies are snowboarding, mountain biking, kite surfing, and I like to foster doggies. So I have like a lot of doggies all the time. These things take a lot of time, but I enjoy them. There are some scientists that I know that love science so much that their hobby is science. I am not that scientist. I do not like to talk about science that much, like when I'm at home doing my hobbies. I have very different physical hobbies.
That's like I like to cook too, and it's like, for me, it's very, I know a lot of people who don't like to cook, but it's very therapeutic for me because it's very process oriented, which I mean, I guess is kind of
It's
a little
different.
science, but it's it's different though.
It's also a little art.
Yeah, it's a little art,
Yeah.
and it has nothing to do with what I do during the rest of my day. So it's a nice.
And you know, I think that's important because having hobbies that are totally different from what we do in a normal basis in our work, it's really like relieve our mind and really make us feel better, and we can learn something new. So I do like that you mentioned that having hobbies is don't feel guilty to do
No.
something, right?
Yeah.
That's hard too. I feel like the hobby stuff was I mean I still do some of my audio hobbies, or some of my hobbies are still audio related. Like I'm interested in electronics and all sorts of stuff, but like I think as I've gotten older, I've been more okay with taking time to myself, and I think I wish I had learned that when I was younger, because I think I would have maybe had a more balanced mindset through a lot of the change in my life. So
Yeah, I think it's, like talking about demanding careers, I do think there's this like common perception that STEM careers are significantly more demanding than careers in other fields, and everyone has their own experiences. And me and my friend and family group, I haven't necessarily found that to be the case. I did see that a little bit in college, where I think on average, the STEM majors spent more hours studying than the non-STEM majors. But once I got to my career, I mean, I've been in STEM. I have people in my life who are really close to me who are elderly protective services workers, like child protective services, but working with elderly folks who are being abused. I don't think I work harder or more hours than them, and I don't think that my job is less stressful than theirs. I think everyone's working hard, and I think it's really just about prioritizing your hobbies and making sure that they happen. Yeah.
Okay. Was there ever a time where you felt like giving up, either during your pursuits of academics or pursuits of your career, and how did you handle it?
Yes, I would say many times, right? We were talking about our journey hasn't been like a straight line, right? We have some bumps and things that happen, but one specific example, when I was doing my first master back in Spain, I was by myself. It was the first time I was abroad, and I was doing a thesis in an institute, which it was very research, science, which was my first experience. I did something wrong that day, and I was mixing things in the chemistry lab that I shouldn't have done. So I got yelled at, and I really felt a total failure. Not only for that one, many things has happened before that. So I said, I just wanted to give up that day. I wanted to just buy a flight and just go back home. What I did, and that's something that has helped me my whole career, my whole life, I would say, is to write to myself. So I remember I sat down to the computer and I wrote a letter to myself. And I just wrote the many reasons I have been grateful, and the many things that have happened before that now they are not a sin. And after I finished that letter, I felt so relieved. And I also read letters that I wrote to myself before that. And I think that little technique has helped me too, because then you can see that we really survive, right? We can see that our world is really falling apart in one moment, but how many times we have gone through struggles, and we have been really fortunate to have the blessings of having that, of passing that struggle, and networking too, having friends, right, that tells me how important is what I was doing and how good I was. So having a networking and also being true to yourself, that helped me a lot. But it definitely was a bad time, and that I really survived.
Maggie, how about you?
I actually have a similar experience. So when I left Norway very abruptly for personal reasons, and it was very traumatic for me because I wasn't expecting to leave for the reasons that I did. It's a long story and I don't need to go into it here. But when I left, I didn't have a job and I didn't really have any prospects for where I was going to find work. And I kind of just moved back in with my parents, and I was like, 30, and I like moved back in with my parents, and I'm like, oh, this is fun. It's great. I have a curfew. What? And so I was kind of like, why am I even like doing this? Like, why did I go to like Norway in the first place? What did I get from it? What was the point? Maybe I should just go back to school and like not even bother doing anything with audio or anything anymore. And it was a very frustrating time. And I was fortunate enough to have people around me who were like, no, we can like, opportunities came forward. They were temporary, but I was like, I'll take it. And eventually that led to the job that I took in Chicago, which was a very formative time for me in my career because I was working with very talented other audio engineers, and I learned how to cut the lacquers that are used to make vinyl records, which was it's a very specific whole other career thing that I've done. So anyway, but yeah, I almost gave up because I was like, what's the point? And I think there were people in my life who were like, you just have to adapt and change and figure out what makes you special and also what you can do to move yourself forward. So it was kind of cool.
Yeah, I guess as far as have I ever felt like quitting, I did quit in the middle of my first year in college. That for me was actually not a really difficult decision. I was like, this is not a good fit. I'm going to explore a little bit. Since then, I've never felt exactly like quitting. I have had moments of self-doubt. Those moments haven't been around, is it, like, can I do this? It's more been around, like, if I do this, is this in alignment with my values? And so one thing, for example, that I struggled with, not so much anymore, but definitely in the early days. I mean, I've talked to some of you guys, one-on-one, my voice is pretty high, I sound excited when I talk, I have a young-looking face. Those things are not what someone expects from a biotech co-founder. And so in the early days, when I hadn't really built this company up, when we were still starting off, I needed to establish my credibility. And part of that ended up being kind of having to change how I communicate and present myself in order to like gain respect from folks who expected me to look a little bit different. And so it meant doing my makeup differently, it meant talking differently, I had to lower my voice, I had to talk slower. So I definitely had moments of self-doubt where I was like, am I selling out? Is this like in alignment with my values? And I got past that. But it was definitely, it's tricky in the early days if there aren't a lot of folks who look like you, because you do sometimes have to like change things, and it feels like you're changing things about yourself before you really get momentum and then can fully be yourself because you're being respected for your contributions.
The voice thing is interesting because I actually I'm trying to control it, but I have a pretty loud voice and it carries, and I also speak very fast, so that's something that I've had to also work on, and I don't know if I'm always successful at it, but it has helped, I think, because people are like, why are you so excited about this? And why are you, like, you must be like very like scattered or whatever, and it's just a passion for what you do and everything, but it's the voice thing that's interesting.
Women have to do this all the time. If you look at Michelle Obama, how she speaks, it's very low, very slow, very measured. That's intentional. And part of it is because it's necessary.
So I love, this is so important, I think. So I started in print journalism, so I was just writing stories. And then I ended up in radio with NPR and now on television. I actually took acting and improv classes to face my fear of public speaking because I knew I had these goals that I wanted to reach, and I couldn't reach them unless I overcame this fear. So I'm so curious, how did you end up kind of having this metamorphosis? Did you practice in the mirror? How did you do it?
I had a vocal coach. So actually, we hired someone at our company who is head of transformational leadership. She does mentorship at our company full-time, which is so cool. But she was literally a rock star. So she was on American Idol. So she knew vocal exercises. So she would literally do vocal exercises with me before important meetings. And I think it honestly took like a good year of that before I felt like I could comfortably slip in and out of it for the right audience.
That's great, and I think also practicing is important, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes if you're shy to talk, just talk, because you're gonna get better at it, right? Sometimes you're in meetings and it's not that we are going to talk just to talk, right? But I'm pretty sure we have something important to say. So start just talking and speaking up helps you to really remove that fear. That helps me a lot because you can hear my beautiful accent, right? Just imagine when I came here and my ear was still a little bit, naive of listening to people, and I already spoke English, but my still broken English was hard for me because I was ashamed of speaking and somebody didn't really understand me. But what really helped me was to really just do it, just speak, just talk, and that really helped me to the practice and just feeling better and doing it, and just that's, as they say, practice is what makes master, right? So I really like that. The mentorship is very important. Right now we have a lot of mentorship and coaching programs, but also just practice and you're gonna get better.
Nice. What opportunities do you recommend to students in high school and even going into college if they do want to pursue some of the careers you pursued or anything in STEM or STEAM? Carolyn?
Sure. I think that trying everything is important at this stage. Now, Marina was saying how when we go to corporate or a more strategic place, you really need to say no a lot of times to prioritize. But when I was back in college or when we are like in high school, it's all the opposite. You want to try everything you have, the possibility, so you can know what you like and what you don't like. So I think my advice would be to try. And I think I have seen a lot of STEM programs here in the Lehigh Valley where you can do something different and just try it out. If you don't like it, just go to the next part. And Maggie is a good example of she has tried different things,
Yes,
right?
I've tried a lot of things. No, but I also think, too, it's important to have, if I had known that I was going to be doing what I was doing, I think I would have changed how I approached my college time. And I'm not even saying that what I did in college was wrong, because I think every opportunity is good because you learn something from it. But like I was saying behind the scenes or whatever, I would have gone to school for electrical engineering and music versus just music, because any engineering stuff I've picked up along the way with electronics and everything has been through, my network of people I work with, or just learning it on my own and breaking things. And so that's great, like you should do things that way, but I think there's a benefit to learning that I still kind of wish like I had had a chance to do that. So if you have opportunities to take classes in something, it's better to take it, get through it, and go, I don't like this, than to not take it and wonder if you would have liked it, I think.
Yep.
Yeah, I would just double click on that. Definitely trying lots of things. The things that I tried during undergrad that I think everyone should try is hands-on research opportunities, and you can do that at any four-year university. The things that I didn't try, that I really regret not trying, that I hope you'll all try, are internships in industry. I didn't have any industry experience in undergrad. That would have been really good thing to try out. Studying abroad is something I didn't do in undergrad that I really regret not doing. And learning some coding. Even if you're going into biology, computer science is so prevalent now, and the younger you learn that skill, the easier it is to pick up.
Yeah, like even making apps on your phone now. I
Yeah.
mean, you can download the code, the Apple X, the software to make all the apps on your phone and stuff. Like even basic stuff like that is like, it's so accessible now, and I wish we had, or at least I had more of that opportunity. So.
I think I have one or two more questions for you guys before we see if anybody in the audience has a question. This one is, how do you define success, or what does it mean to be successful from your perspective, Carolyn?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And I always like to start with like the fancy definition, right? If we define success, it's like the accomplishment of what we want, of our purpose. But I would say it's deeper than that, because success looks different for everyone. And in this day and age, with social media and internet, I think it's important to talk about comparison, right? And now that we have different full of young girls, young people, right? It is really important to understand that our success, it can be different to the other person's success, because we define our own dreams, we define what makes us happy. And I think that being successful is really being able to do where we feel content, where we are happy, and also spread happiness and change our little world, I would say, where we are. It doesn't matter if we're a CEO, an engineer, a working mom, a teacher, right? Wherever we are, being able to be content and to change our society or world for better, I think that's been successful.
Maggie, how about you?
I think it's a lot of different stuff, and honestly, I think my definition of success has changed. Even just having, I just started at NPR back in February, so that's why I was commenting on the corporate environment newness and everything. So for me, since I started that job, it's so different that I think for me, the success is also kind of being humble at where you're at, and I have a real problem with this. I'm very impatient, and I want to get better at things very, very quickly. So I think for me, my current definition of success is being okay with where you're at, but having an idea of where you want to go and to be kind of happy where you are. And I'm not saying I'm very good at any of that. I'm just saying that that is my definition of it. And I think it makes life easier because you end up putting a lot less pressure on yourself to be something, because I'm guilty of the Instagram scrolling and being like, look how successful these people are, this cool video or whatever. And I think even when I think I'm not comparing myself, I am comparing myself. And I think being happy with where you are and seeing where you're going is if you can be that way, in my opinion, you're successful because you have a path and you're happy with yourself. So or content with yourself, I guess is better.
And I want to build in what you said. I just think it's so important that it's not that we cannot improve ourselves, right? We can always be something else and be better, but be content with be happy of where we are right now and knowing where we want to be, right? Having a path for that, I think that's great.
Yeah, I think it's really important.
Yep.
Yeah, for me, so I think for me, having work that I'm proud of in two ways, big picture, what I'm doing is improving the world in some way, but also just at the more micro level, am I enjoying my day-to-day activities? That's just really important for me to be motivated on a regular basis. Second thing for me, I really value independence and flexibility. I don't know, I'm really weird about this, but I am happy to work 9 to 5, but if someone told me I had to clock in at 9 and clock out at 5, I would hate that. I would hate that. I can work 9 to 5, I can work 8 to 6, but I don't want a high level of control over my schedule.
The micromanaging.
Yeah, I like having a lot of independence and flexibility over my schedule, which I do have, and I work hard, but it's not because anyone's micromanaging my schedule. So that's been something that's been really valuable to me too. And honestly, also financial stability. It's not something I thought I would care about in grad school because the salary is very, very low in grad school and I was very, very happy still. But now, maybe it's the stage of life that I'm at, but that's something I really appreciate. I mean, my parents didn't have a ton of money when I was growing up. When I was really little, my mom and I lived in Section 8 and we were on welfare. And so to have the level of financial stability that I have now from my career where, when I was growing up, it was occasionally there was a stay-at-home mom. Now I have a stay-at-home fiance. So my fiance stays at home and takes care of our dog and takes care of things at the house. So reaching that level of financial stability has also been a really important part of my career success.
Healthcare is really great.
Yes.
I've got to say. Again,
Yes. Like it. We're pro-healthcare.
Yeah, pro-healthcare.
We do want to see if anybody from the audience had any questions for the panel. There's, you can see the microphones right along the back wall. If anyone would like to ask these ladies anything, be brave even if you didn't take an acting class.
Hello. I just wanted to ask, I'm really inspired that a lot of you guys have gone far away from home or where you've grown up to chase your dreams, whether that's from the Dominican Republic or even, going across the country for school or going to another country for study abroad like Norway. That's something I'm also interested in, and I just wanted to get any advice you would give for people to motivate them to be able to go far away from home, which can be really scary, especially for people going, high school students going into college and stuff like that. Just any advice you would have regarding that.
First off, I acknowledge that not everyone may have the privilege of being able to just randomly study abroad and everything. So, if you can, that's wonderful. If you can't, you can still have wonderful experiences where you're living. I think for me I didn't have any expectations. I felt like I knew where I was going. I understood a little bit of the culture that I was getting into, but you don't really know what's going to happen when you do something like really unknown. Like, yeah, you can move from coast to coast in the US, and that's also kind of weird. But moving to a whole other country, like, no expectations. You just kind of have to just whatever happens, happens, and, you know, a tax return in a foreign country is a very strange thing to read, but, you know. But anyway, that's my thing. It's just, I think, no expectations and being prepared for all the logistical stuff that you might come in contact with, like finances and stuff. It's really important.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think having no expectation is important, and also knowing living abroad is really the university of life. So we are going to have we had a lot of challenges, right, being abroad, but it was really rewarding, and I will never change that back.
Yeah, no.
Never. But I would say the youngest, the better. Because then when you start growing up and you have more responsibilities and family and kids and all of that, it really gets harder. So I did it at a young age, and I think that's the best age that you have to live abroad. And just don't be afraid to do it, because it's really rewarding, and you will never regret it. So start young, and don't be afraid. Just select where you want to go and just go.
Yeah, and if you have an idea of where you want to study or just live, I kind of did the living, I guess the more living aspect versus studying. You might want to learn a little bit of the language before you go there. Not even necessarily because they won't, well, depending where you are, they may not speak English. But like in Norway, to get a job, you had to be a little bit fluent in the language. So, I mean, there's more things on that. But, like, I think if you have an idea where you want to go and learning about the culture and everything ahead of time, I think is also really helpful.
Yeah. Having the opportunity, and I think that's good to acknowledge that not everybody has the opportunity, but also seeking the opportunities. My case, I had a scholarship, right? My family was not able. We didn't have money for me to live abroad, but I knew I wanted to do it, and there are so many opportunities out there that we can research. There are scholarships, there are things that are out there that really help you to live abroad. So just don't, just explore and seek for those opportunities.
And there are English-speaking programs all over Europe. You don't have to speak the language. I say that just from a nice perspective, but like and it's even more so than when I was in college. So if you seek it out, find some universities in these countries that you want to go to, and I guarantee you that one or two of them will have English-speaking programs where you don't have to know the language, and it's good to get you in.
And there are programs where you can get paid to teach English abroad too.
Yep.
So I didn't study abroad when I was younger because I didn't know about these things, and I really regret it. So there are definitely ways you can make it work. I do advise, like they're saying, doing it as young as you can, because the older you get, it's just harder at each next stage in your career to get time off to leave like that. Yeah.
Are there any other questions?
Thank you.
Hello. Thank you very much for saying about the experience of going to the one college and then understanding you changed your mind. It's really helpful because most of the times people don't want to talk about it. But my main question is, how would you recommend college students to, with the stress out, like with a huge amount of stress, with huge amounts of stress and burning out?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I think one thing is being aware of all the resources you have. Most colleges, especially for students from underrepresented backgrounds, you're going to have access to free resources like tutoring. And there have been times where I was really, really scared to ask a professor for an extension on a midterm or an important paper. And then when I asked, they gave me like a week-long extension. And I was expecting maybe a day, or maybe that the answer would be a no. So I think not being afraid to ask for things when you need help, because the university and the professors and the teachers, their job is really, they're there to help you succeed. And so just making sure that you're taking advantage of everything that's available to you.
Great.
I just want to add to maybe once you create your roster for college, on what classes you're taking, try not to overdo it. I think when you were talking about burnout, I definitely wanted to be on the fast track out of college. I wanted to try to graduate early, and that was actually not the greatest decision because you end up just being inundated and you get burnt out. So don't overdo it with your roster as well. Any other questions?
Hello. I have a question specifically geared to Marina. Do you feel like you've lost some integrity in your company, especially considering since you said before that you used to do a bunch of different jobs and like you were really hands-on, and now like it's a little bit more leaned back for you?
So this is a really interesting question, like because I'm not hands-on in the science anymore. No, I actually haven't, and I wasn't sure how I would feel about that. I have been really engaged the whole time because I've had to learn new skills the whole time, and that's what's been really motivating for me. But there are different types of scientists, right? So there are some scientists who prefer to focus on one field and become very, very masterful at that field. Some of our stem cell biologists are that way. They've been doing stem cell culture for 10 years. They're some of the best people in the world at stem cell culture. I was a different kind of scientist. I was more of a like breadth rather than depth scientist, where I liked learning stem cell culture, doing it for 3 months to get an experiment done, then learning how to build a laser technology, doing it for 3 months to get a prototype out the door, learning Python and SQL and coding, and doing that for 3 months to like build up a database. But I really enjoy learning new things every so often, as opposed to like getting to expert level in one thing. So I think it kind of just depends on what your personality type is in terms of how you prefer to learn and advance. Yeah.
I also wanted to ask, how difficult was it to start your own not company, but to make your own product?
It was so difficult. It was like really, really, really difficult. I didn't think it would be this difficult, or we just didn't know because we had never done it. It is crazy, crazy difficult. I mean, there were definitely times where I'd like wake up at 3 a.m. thinking about like, oh my God, here are all these problems that we need to solve. But what's made it really doable is that I have 2 solid co-founders. So if you're thinking of entrepreneurship, I highly recommend having co-founders, and it's a really important relationship. I mean, I spend more time talking to my co-founders than I do many family members, and maybe even more than my significant other, because the co-founders, you're around them, 9 hours of your waking day every single day. The other thing that's made it doable is mentors. So I had a PhD in applied physics. I didn't know anything about business. So when we started off, we had to talk to a lot of folks who had done this, but were like 2 years ahead of us, or 5 years ahead of us, or 7 years ahead of us, to know what to do and to know how to do some of these things that we just had no experience with, like creating these financial documents or establishing like a cap table.
Thank you.
Another question?
So you've already talked about a lot of different challenges that you've had to face and different times that you felt like you were about to give up. What were times when you made a genuine mistake that could have held you back, and how did you recover from that mistake? What did you do? How did you fix it? And because as you go on in life, I imagine making a mistake could have more severe consequences on your life and career. How did you go back from it?
It's a great question. I will start. I remember I had an engineering project a couple of years ago, and I needed to design a new machine for a process. We did the design. We did want that machine to be customized. So instead of having something off the shelf, buying like a machine that was already built, we designed it ourselves. When we already had the machine on place, and we went through the process of validation and making sure the machine did what we wanted to do, it totally failed, right? And we were, like myself as a leader, and we were a team that were behind the design of that machine. So it was really painful as an engineer, right? To really see something that you designed that didn't work. And at that moment, it was really something that we felt very bad about it, but I would say at the end, something good came out of it, because we have so many lessons learned. And what I did at that moment was, okay, let's not stay on the what happened. Let's solve the problems. And as an engineer, that's what we do, solve problems, right? Mm-hmm. What can we do now to fix what is already done? In business, there are something that they call sunk costs. When we already buy something and you really don't act on it because you already pay it. So we didn't let that scene to really step us to say, hey, I made a mistake, let's do it. So I would say the first two scenes are to really acknowledge we made a mistake. We designed the machine, it didn't work. It was our mistake, right? And being an environment that allow you to do that is very important. Working for B. Brown, that's something that I really love because we are in an environment where we are able to say, hey, this was a mistake, let's improve it, right? And the second thing that we did after acknowledging it was a mistake was let's do it. Let's work with a team, let's do and fix it, do something to fix it. So I think we always will find challenges, but we really need to acknowledge what is happening, acknowledge our weaknesses, work with people that really know more than us, that really can help us to fix those issues and move on, right? Do what we need to do and move on. So I think that one of my experiences.
So mine's actually when I got let go from a job. So my first job out of grad school, I was working for an artist management company, and my heart wasn't into it, kind of like the journalism thing. You're like, well, I like it, but I don't really want to do this job. But I needed the money, and I had experience in it for my undergrad, and it was a temp gig, and it was supposed to only last for about, I don't know, like 10 months or something. But by month 7, I was just being lazy. I just like kind of checked out, and I was like 23, so I was also kind of in a headspace where I like didn't really think about the consequences of my actions. And I was called up to HR, and my job at the time was all about contracts and stuff for various artists we were representing. And she was just like, I don't think you really want to be here anymore, and I think we're gonna have to let you go. And I remember like being horrified because it was the first time in my life that I ever felt like I really let someone down, not just like a friend a little bit or something, but I was like, oh my gosh, was I really like being really lazy this whole time and not doing my job right? And I was really upset. I remember I didn't even know what to say to her. And she's like, just finish out the week and we'll send you your last paycheck. She's like, no hard feelings. But she looked at me and she's like, I don't think this is really the field for you. So like, you should probably just figure out what you want to do really. And I could have, I think at that point, this is another example of like when you just want to give up and quit. I think I could have just quit everything right there, but instead I tried to recover from it by going, okay, well, what am I going to have to do moving forward to change the situation so I don't end up letting someone else down in a professional setting because of my own pride and my own just, stupidity or whatever. So I don't know, it was that, I completely forgot about that until you were telling this story, and I was like, man, that was just so, yeah.
Well, we only have a few minutes left, so Marina, did you want to quickly add?
Oh, yeah, sure. I mean, so it's funny. My most embarrassing getting fired story is I was working as a waitress at a sushi restaurant, and I got fired for eating too much of the free sushi.
That's a pretty good reason to get fired.
I was very embarrassed. But yeah, I mean, just double clicking on what Carolyn said, if a mistake happens, it's saying, okay, made a mistake. Don't be overly apologetic about it. I don't think that's necessary, but just owning up to it, but don't like beat yourself up over it. Owning up to it and being like, okay, here's what I think the next steps are. If you have a good manager, they will not make you feel bad for it. Yeah.
Okay, so we just have 3 more questions, and we'll see who wants to go.
All right, so my question is about how do you motivate yourself every day to like go back to that job that you love in STEM? Because I'm sure all of us here love that, but I don't think passion is enough to carry you sometimes. Like sometimes you get tired of trying to solve a problem. So how do you go back to that every day?
I mean, I think it's kind of hard sometimes. Like, I love what I do, and I love my job, but like sometimes you just are having an off day, or like you just want to sleep. I don't know. And I think for me, it's always about what can I try to think about, well, if I'm not happy this week for whatever reason, what do I need to do next week to try to make that better? Or what's my end goal for what I'm doing? And how is me doing my job today going to help get to that point? Because I think if I don't think that way, I'm just going to burn out. So I think it's totally normal to have bad days too. I think like even when you're doing something you love, like you're not going to be happy every single day. So
Yep.
it's about what's the next step if you're unhappy. That's at least for me.
And you know what, Marina and Carolyn, I'll have each of you take one of the next questions.
Okay.
So next question over here to the right.
Hello, I was wondering what you think the most important soft skill is to develop before you enter the workforce or even college.
Communication. It's so important. And it plays a role in so many different ways. I mean, you are communicating in a certain way when you're interviewing, you're communicating in a certain way when you're talking to your manager or negotiating for a pay raise or negotiating for your salary. You communicate in a different way when you're talking to clients or customers. And it's not something that's really taught in the PhD. So it's something that is probably the most more important than your technical skills, because if you're very strong technically but you can't communicate well, then you're not going to really shine like you should in the interview process.
Yeah, great
Okay.
question.
And our last question for Carolyn.
Yeah, actually, my question was for Carolyn, so this worked out
that
perfect.
works out.
So I was just wondering, what's your experience climbing ranks in corporate, and especially being somebody who came from your home abroad? What was that like for you, and would you recommend starting in corporate after getting your degree, an undergraduate degree? What would you recommend?
That's great. I mean, I would say I'm the first generation corporate manager, and I think I didn't plan for it, but it came everything together organically. So I would say just following the career path that you love, right, that you're being passionate about it, but also having that target. I remember when I came to the Lehigh Valley, right, and I saw our corporate headquarters, and we are in the production plant, but I said to myself, I want to be in the headquarters one day, right? So I didn't know when it was going to happen, but my target was to do that. So being intentional with where you want to be, right, and really following through your career, being intentional, being in those places, in those tables that we were talking before, not being afraid of speaking up, being in those tables. But something that is very, very important is having good networking, a mentor, and a coach, somebody that believes in you, because it doesn't matter how smart we are, right? If we don't have a person that believes in us and can say, yes, you can have that door open, it's gonna be very hard. So when you enter to a company or you want to go to a corporate world, just look for mentors and coaches that can help you to understand how to navigate that world and also just work toward that target. Yep.
Thank you.
All right, I'd love to just have a quick round of applause for our panel. Thank you. And now I'd like to introduce Executive Advisory Council co-chairs Jean Vincent from Avonic and Joy Carnes from Cedar Crest College. They're going to join us for some closing remarks to tonight's event.
So my name is Joy Carnes. I enjoyed talking to a bunch of you this evening. I'm a professor of biological sciences at Cedar Crest College and one of the co-chairs for the Da Vinci Science Center's WISE Executive Advisory Council. Well, I don't know about you, but I'm feeling inspired. Anyone else?
Yes.
I'm so impressed by these powerful women who are making incredible contributions to the quality of our lives. As a biology professor, I'm an advocate for education. It is absolutely crucial that we support our K-12 school teachers, and as their guidance is crucial for inspiring the next generation, putting them on the path to their own career successes. But education doesn't just happen in the classroom. Education happens in the home, where parents are the first ones to encourage their children to learn. Education happens in discovery centers and museums, like the Da Vinci Science Center, where science is brought to life. Education happens in forums, like this one, where the next generation gets firsthand insight into where their educational journey can take them. I hope that you are getting a sense that education is not a solo journey. education requires a community where students learn from their teachers, their parents, and their local leaders. I believe in the power of mentorship and in making connections within the community. And I encourage all of you to leave here tonight with at least one new connection. For the students in the audience, I encourage you to reach out to that person and ask questions. Ask them for advice on how you can find the path to similar success. For the science professionals, you need to show those students how to take that first step so that they can one day also be considered a distinguished female STEM leader, ready to tell their own story on a stage like this one. Most importantly, as the co-chair for the WISE Executive Advisory Council, I encourage all of you to stay connected to WISE and participate in all the outstanding programs it has to offer. You can learn more about the WISE initiative and get involved, if you're not already, by visiting our website and following us on LinkedIn. Thank you again for each of our panelists for sharing their expertise and insights with us. Thank you also to all of our sponsors, the WISE Executive Advisory Council, the Da Vinci Science Center staff, and all of you for being here tonight. And now I'd like to welcome my co-chair to the stage.
Thanks, Joy. So now I'm a little self-conscious. Am I speaking low enough and slow enough? These guys were really, really, really great, and I'm also really inspired by it. And thank you, Joy, for being the co-chair. And just to mention, I'll put in a small plug. I think when Lynn Erickson was showing some of the different activities that WISE does, some of it is networking. We do have a networking committee for WISE, and we'd like to have some events for both professionals and students. So we're going to use all of you here. Your attendance is kind of our permission to, I think, use your email address, so that we're going to invite you to these things. So I met some great connections tonight. Someone was mentioning, oh, I thought you guys knew each other forever. I'm like, no, we just connected so quickly on that level. I'd love to see more of you connect like that. So tonight was a clear example of how the Da Vinci Science Center fulfills its mission to bring science to life and lives to science. I'm really, really fortunate to work for a company, Avonic, that is committed to supporting programs that help remove barriers for women and encourage girls to consider careers in STEAM and STEM. The WISE initiative focuses on both of these areas, and I am really, really proud to be a part of this important work and be on this committee. Tonight underscored the value of bringing young women together with those of us who have some experience and some knowledge, and yeah, we're a little bit older, to help guide them. But I mean, even in one case, I was talking with someone who had the word student, and they were a college student, and then a high school student came out and said, what do you do? Microbiology. Oh my gosh, you know, and they were starstruck. So it's like the student becomes the mentor. So please also be open to that. So it's great to bring people together here. If you would like to support the Institute financially, so a little bit of a commercial, you can do it through the peer-to-peer campaign that we have going on through the end of 2022. The WISE Executive Advisory Committee is raising funds to support scholarships for girls interested in taking a part in the Da Vinci Science Center programs. These scholarships will help lift the economic barriers for girls with an interest in STEAM and STEM. I've personally contributed. I think it's important. I encourage my colleagues to do so, and to encourage their friends to help the next generation that will follow in our footsteps. So there is a QR code in your program on page 27 to take you to the website for more information. It's really, really easy to do, I promise. And you can make a donation or start your own campaign even if you want to, and you know how to do that on social media to encourage others to support girls in STEAM. We need to nurture the interests of the young girls that promote STEAM, that it's for all of us, right? We learned tonight through our networking experiences and the exciting exchange of ideas that we had earlier, and this really, really outstanding panel on the moderation. That's a really hard job. I've done it, and that was excellent. That make important contributions to these fields, and we want to support each other to keep it going. So with that, I heard the rumor that there was some snow outside, so please be very, very, very careful. Have a good night. We hope to see all of you at a WISE function soon. And by the way, mark your calendars. The next forum is November 14th, 2023. Details to be available soon on the Science Center website. So with that, thank you so much, everybody, for attending, and to the organizers and the sponsors and to the panel. Thanks, Bill.
Great job, you guys. You really did enjoy it.
Thanks.
You did a great job.